The date is September 9th, 2012, also known as apologies for the poor footage quality. Jarvitz, an Ocarina of Time speedrunner, was participating in a puzzle race, in which participants have to complete a specific goal with certain requirements and restrictions. But that part isn't so important. It's what happened a couple hours into that race that is. Jarvitz went to unfreeze King Zora to obtain the Zora tunic as reward, but that's not what happened. Instead, King Zora gave Jarvitz a completely different item, the Eyeball Frog. By complete accident, Jarvitz had discovered a huge sequence break that redefined the meta for several of OOT's speedrun categories. And thus, the legend of Speedfrog was born. The Eyeball Frog is one of the final items obtained in the Big Goron Sword trade quest, where normally you present a prescription to King Zora, who will then give you the frog to use as ingredients for eye drops that you must deliver to Big Goron. But as seen in the clip, Jarvitz did not present the prescription to King Zora. He didn't even have the prescription in his inventory. Jarvitz had somehow skipped a vast majority of the item trading sequence for no discernible reason. Puzzled, he went out of his way to confirm that no, he wasn't dreaming, the frog was real, and allowed him to complete the Big Goron Sword quest. Immediately, the community went to investigate the cause behind this mysterious glitch. Solving this mystery would eliminate most of the trading quest for the Big Goron Sword, a massive time save for the 100% speedrun. So, how long did it take? Oh, it was all figured out on the same day. Mere hours later, when a prominent glitch hunter, MZX Rules, would be the first to recreate early Eyeball Frog, and understand how it worked. When MZX Rules cleared King Zora's text, he performed a trick known as collection delay. By pulling out the hookshot immediately after closing the text box, this action delays King Zora giving him the tunic. This works because this specific interaction has a 1-frame delay between closing the last text box and Link obtaining the Zora tunic, where Link can pull out an item on this frame. Pulling out the hookshot takes priority over collecting the item, but after pressing A to put the hookshot away, Link collects the Eyeball Frog. Neat! However, if we take a look at what happened to Jarvitz, he didn't pull out the hookshot, or any item out for that matter. So what the hey? How'd he do it in the first place? Well, another speedrunner, RunnerGuy2489, was livestreaming himself looking into the glitch, and in the process, made one of the funniest discoveries in the game's history.
Okay, see, I didn't even use the hookshot there. But I got the Eyeball Frog. All I did was mash R and start. Yeah. I'm just holding R. Okay, let's just hold... Holy all you have to do is hold R! All you do is hold R! It is just like...
You just hold R. It really was that easy. All you needed to do was hold R, and you could skip the majority of the Big Goron's trade quest. Okay, that isn't entirely accurate. There are a few other requirements and restrictions at play. But first, a word from today's delicious sponsor, Factor. Factor is a pre-made meal service that makes meeting your nutrition goals easier than ever by delivering fresh, never frozen, dietitian-approved meals right to your doorstep. I often find that taking time out of my busy schedule to cook for myself to be quite tiring. Factor is perfect for me, especially as someone that loves finding big time saves and optimizations in my day-to-day life. Skip that overpriced takeout trap. Factor is cheaper and way more delicious. Get chef-crafted, restaurant-quality meals delivered right to your door. They're ready to eat and heat in just 2 minutes. In addition, Factor now offers loads of snack options like breakfast, smoothies, juices, small bites, and more to keep me going no matter what's on the schedule. To get started, head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code LunaticJ50 to get 50% off your first Factor box and 20% off for your next month of orders. That's code LunaticJ50 at factor75.com for 50% off of your first box and 20% off of your next month of orders. For starters, early Eyeball Frog is a version-exclusive trick. In version 1.2 of Ocarina of Time, the King Zora collection delay was patched, preventing you from performing the trick. Since each re-release of Ocarina of Time is based on 1.2, including the Wii Virtual Console and Nintendo Switch Online, the only versions you can get Speedfrog are 1.0 and 1.1 on the Nintendo 64. While Wii VC is generally the preferred platform for Ocarina of Time speedruns, thanks to numerous advantages, the Speedfrog immediately saved several minutes in 100% alone, making N64 the fastest version for 100% speedruns at the time of this discovery. New routes had to take a couple considerations in mind though. First, you need to have an item ID in the adult trade item slot in your inventory that is less than the prescription. The easiest way to do this is to get the pocket egg, the first item in the trading sequence, but any trade item until the prescription will work. The trade item also allows for the easiest way to unfreeze King Zora without blue fire. Second, you cannot get the Zora tunic from King Zora before attempting early Eyeball Frog. That's a bit obvious. You also cannot purchase the Zora tunic before talking to King Zora, otherwise he won't even try to give you an item at all. And finally, performing Speedfrog will lock you out of getting a free tunic from King Zora, unless you do a little bit of trickery. Using a warp song with a perishable trade item will automatically reduce the timer to 1 second, and when that timer runs out, you're warped back to King Zora. But you'd at least now have the prescription. If you do the hold R trick, but instead with the prescription while talking to King Zora from the steps, he'll give you the tunic instead. This was useful for older 100% routes, where you could route in getting the Zora tunic along with Speedfrog if you didn't have the Giant's wallet, which would allow you to carry enough rupees to buy the Zora tunic from the shop. Then, you could show the prescription to get the frog again to complete the trade quest with over half the sequence skipped. While early Eyeball Frog happened to be the byproduct of the Hold R collection delay on King Zora, which just so happened to be a huge time save for 100%, there is another aspect of the Eyeball Frog that made it an incredibly powerful item in other categories. On February 19th, 2012, wrong warping was discovered in Ocarina of Time, after Christian F23 was testing a cutscene skip idea in the Fire Temple. Within 24 hours, the OOT community came together to test out wrong warping using several methods. This is when Exodus discovered using a Furore's Wind on B method to wrong warp. He ended up finding the first ever credits warp in Ocarina of Time, and thus began a new era of any percent speedruns, where you no longer fought Ganon, the Ganonless era. This was now the fastest way to beat Ocarina of Time, though admittedly not by much compared to the old route. Setting up the wrong warp to the credits required a lengthy setup, completing half the adult trade item quest like before, and using the light arrow cutscene to activate Bottle Adventure just to get Furore's Wind on B for a wrong warp from Dodongo's Cavern to the credits. The Ganonless era would be short-lived, lasting only from February 20th to April 13th, when the classic Deku Tree to Ganon's Tower wrong warp was found. Now that Ganonless had been obsoleted by a faster route that, ironically, still defeated Ganon, the Ganonless route had been reduced to a legacy category that didn't see much interest. That is, of course, until Speedfrog was discovered, and since it had an expiration timer, it could be used to wrong warp. Back in December 2008, the revered glitch hunter, Akrite, discovered 2 ways to skip the medallion cutscenes at the end of dungeons. The Furore's Wind method that was eventually used for Ganonless, and another method using a trade item with an expiration timer. In this case, it was the Odd Mushroom and he was in the Forest Temple. By using a glitch known as Ocarina items to play a fake Ocarina on the edge of a blue warp, since you normally can't use the Ocarina in boss rooms, you can take control of Link as the blue warp tries to take Link out of the dungeon, and allow the timer to expire. If you time the item spoiling just as the blue warp finishes taking Link away, the medallion cutscene is skipped, and he's back where he originally got the trade item, and the medallion is in his inventory. Although it would take another 3 years for wrong warping to be completely understood, the addition of Hold R made Ganonless now have a quicker credits warp than Furore's Wind. Instead of completing half the training quest, the new route hightails to Death Mountain after getting the Pocket Egg to obtain the Goron Tunic, and the Bolero of Fire to warp into the crater after getting the Frog. As I previously mentioned, warping with a perishable item reduces the expiration timer down to 1 second. The heat timer in Death Mountain Crater, however, takes priority. Older frog routes for Ganonless would defeat Volvagia first before getting the frog, but eventually, runners would set up an out-of-bounds clip in the crater, switch to the Goron Tunic to disable the heat timer and reactivate the frog timer, and then void out just when the frog goes bad so the timer is frozen, allowing runners to go through the Fire Temple, defeat Volvagia, switch back into the Kokiri Tunic, and activate the blue warp via Ocarina items at the correct time so that when the heat timer ends, the frozen frog timer restarts, and the frog spoils at the transition, and bam, credits warp. I understand that credits warps can be pretty divisive, but you gotta admit, an Ocarina of Time speedrun where the final boss is now a dragon? That's actually pretty awesome, not gonna lie. And Ganonless wasn't the only category that uses the frog to wrong warp to the credits. After a community vote in May 2017, credits warping was officially allowed in the All Dungeons category. So like Ganonless, the new fastest route also ended with the Fire Temple, using the frog to credits warp as well. In addition, the Eyeball Frog was also used to skip the Water Medallion cutscene after defeating Morpha, since you could reach that boss fight pretty quickly from Zora's Domain with the help of some glitches. Dang, it really does feel like every category that Frog touches turns to gold. But before you know it, times change, and some tricks just get obsolete. In August 2017, the discovery of a major trick known as Equip Swap would have a ripple effect across many Ocarina of Time categories. This trick allowed you to equip child-only items as Adult Link, and vice versa. This greatly enhanced certain runs like All Dungeons, both on N64 and Wii VC, two vastly different routes that both benefited from Equip Swap, yet were pretty even with each other. As for 100%, Equip Swap had greatly buffed Wii VC in particular, especially since you could now use Deku Sticks as Adult on VC, where it would crash on N64. Now, early Eyeball Frog no longer gave N64 the edge over VC. In 2020, after the discovery and implementation of SRM, any percent now had a new credits warp faster than ever, completely obsoleting the old Ganonless route. Thankfully, since that Ganonless category was pretty beloved, that old Eyeball Frog Ganonless route still lives on, even though that category has been moved from the main leaderboard down to the category extensions page. Oh, and let's not forget how integral the Speedfrog is to the No Pause challenge. But if you want to know more about that run, I suggest you give that video a watch in case you haven't already. Thanks for watching, and remember to shoot for the moon.